Hey, good afternoon, race fans. Welcome here to race number 28 of Season 3 of the NNSCRA Duracell Cup Series. Playoff race number 2, the middle race of the first round of the chase for the Duracell Cup Series Championship. This is going to be the race that basically sets it up for our first elimination race next week at the Art of Bricks, but we got to finish off today's race at the Charlotte Roval. Now, the past 2 seasons, we have run the early access Charlotte Roval, but we do have the updated 2019 version here today. A couple of things that are going to be important with this track as opposed to the track we've run in the past 2 seasons is especially over in that dogleg or chicane on the NASCAR back straightaway. There used to be a tire barrier that jutted out at the exit of that chicane. That is not there anymore. It is just an open runoff space, and so we should see these drivers be able to traverse through there pretty well, and probably without incident, at least we hope so, and maybe see this race go into a long green flag run, maybe go green the entire way. And if that's the case, then we're in for a very interesting race. This could come down to fuel mileage, because based off of what these drivers were doing in practice sessions, it looks like they're only able to make it somewhere between maybe 12 to 14 laps on a tank of fuel. We've got 28 laps here today, so they would be right on the cusp of maybe one stopping this race, but some drivers, depending on when they come to pit road, may have to make 2 pit stops before the conclusion of today's event. On the front row, it's an all-Camry front row, a couple of non-playoff contenders, both still looking for their first win on the season. You got N Ormond there in the 18, who was a 2-time winner last season. This year, no wins and did not make the playoffs, and alongside of him, the defending champion of the series will not be defending his title, did not make it into the playoffs. He's obviously looking for his first win of the season, and that is R Acosta. Our playoff standings coming into this race. Obviously, we already know after last week's events from Richmond, Carter Friesen is locked into the round of 12. A number of other drivers had great runs in the top 10, including Carson Gum, Jordan Lopez, and Levi McIntyre. They all come into this race, your top 4 in the standings, respectively. We're going to get the command in just a moment, and then we'll tell you really where the trouble spot is, 12th in the standings on down, and the drivers involved in that kerbuffle. Let's go down and get the most famous words in motorsports and get them rolling here for pacing at the Charlotte Roval.
Drivers, start your engines.
So right now, we mentioned the top 4. 5th in points is Cody Lamas. Austin LaPlante is 6th. Vince Almariego 7th. 8th Keith Batson. 9th Dylan Young. James Qualls in 10th. Jack Mitchell currently sits 11th. Ryan Brommer is the cutoff line driver. He is in the 12th spot. So everybody's going to be gunning for him here today. Now, with him being the driver everyone's shooting for, the 4 drivers that come into this race in elimination spots, that would be 13th through 16th, are J Millz. He's 1 point out of 12th in the standings. 7 points back is 14th place Zach Rogers. M Haas is a total of 8 points back. He is 15th in the standings, and 9 points back is N Hudson. He is 16th. So, when you consider the fact that it's single digits from 16th up to 12th, it is going to be very interesting to see what happens here today at the Charlotte Roval and how it's going to play its factor into basically who's moving on and who is not. And, you know, there's drivers that really have to make sure that they leave Charlotte Roval with a good run too, like Dylan Young, like James Qualls, like Jack Mitchell, because Mitchell comes into this race only 8 points ahead of the cut line. 9 points ahead of the cut line is Qualls, and 11 points ahead of the cut line is Dylan Young. So if one of these drivers here today have a bad performance, it could very well put them into next week at Indianapolis almost in a must-win situation. Now, we've had an incident here under pacing already, and it's Zach Rogers. Something happened with Rogers and Benny Watson. I don't know what went on there, but that is not good for the 6 machine. Matthew Rodriguez has got damage as well, and I think I saw some left side damage to the 54 of James Qualls. And Rogers came into this race 14th in the standings, and I don't think anybody is on pit road. So obviously we'll have to rely on the NSCRA split cam to show you what happened there under pacing. We haven't had an incident under pacing in a long time. It looks like Zach Rogers is bringing his car to pit lane. That is a tough break for the driver of the 6. If he DNFs here today, he could be in trouble. But here we go, 28 laps of racing. Green flag is out. Let's roll at the Roval. Our 2 former winners at the Charlotte Roval are in today's field. Remember, back to season 1, it came down between a couple of playoff contenders, Dylan Poteet and Jesse Turner, and we had the dump and run, if you will, over in the chicane. Turner turning Poteet for the lead, eventually the win. And last season, it was Cole Baker who went to victory lane. So for the past 2 seasons, a playoff contender has won here at the Charlotte Roval. Highest running playoff contenders right now, battling for the 3rd position. 3-time winner Dylan Young, regular season champion Jack Mitchell. Looks like Dylan Young may win out that battle in NASCAR Turn 2. Carson Gum trying to get to Jessica Shelton's back bumper, make it a battle for 5th place as they head down into the chicane. Heavy braking zone. It turns down further to the left and right now. They moved the chicane, changed configuration a little bit, but you saw right there that runoff that these drivers are able to use now instead of a tire barrier blocking their path, and Mitchell is going to get back by Dylan Young. As Carson Gum, Jessica Shelton outbraking each other. And to the final few corners, heading for the start-finish line, Shelton will keep the position. Mentioned about Cole Baker being the defending winner of this race back in Season 2. Right now up inside of the top 10, trying to hold off teammate Vince Almariego. Up to the front here just see if we got any battle going on. No, right now it's about maybe 5 car lengths from Norman back to Ryan Acosta. And I want to follow up on the 6 of Zach Rogers and a couple of other drivers that we saw with damage. Matthew Rodriguez is still running. Benny Watson is still running. James Qualls is still running. But I think Zach Rogers may be out of this race. And if that is the case, then for the guy who came into this race behind the cut line already, yeah, he never even took the green flag. Zach Rogers took it to the garage. Never even got to start this race after a lot of damage sustained on the front of his Corn Dodge Challenger. And just like that, I think we can safely say that, you know, we talked about if a driver has 2 bad races in a round, they head into that elimination race in a must-win situation. Zach Rogers may just fit into that criteria here today. Michael Norman has stretched out his lead over Ryan Acosta. Then it's a long ways back to Jack Mitchell in 3rd. Best battle up towards the front right now is for the 4th position. That's Dylan Young and Jessica Shelton. This could turn into a 3-man fight for the 4th spot, as Charles Belding is starting to close in. They're actually starting to reel Dylan Young back in as well. Levi McIntyre back there as well in the 99. So right now with where he and Carson Gum are both running, both came off top 10 runs last week at Richmond. And, you know, we mentioned that some drivers could be heading into Indianapolis in a must-win situation. On the flip side, if you have 2 good races in the first round, you know, you could head into Indianapolis already locked in to the next round, regardless of what happens to you. Speaking of being locked in, we mentioned with Carter Friesen winning last week at Richmond that he is already locked into the round of 12, and I noticed he's running back here around the 36th position. He didn't get a good qualifying effort here this week, so, you know, that's obviously part of it, but I don't really see him making a lot of moves right now to try and charge up to the front. And I mentioned the fact this race could end up going down to fuel strategy. And so if that's the case, you know, maybe Carter Friesen, knowing he's got that win in the bank, knowing he's moving on to the next round, maybe he'll go outside the box of what other drivers might do, maybe see if he can sneak out back-to-back victories here during the playoffs. And I would be a little bit concerned about guys up here like Benny Watson, Matthew Rodriguez, and James Qualls with the fact that we've got green flag pit stops possibly in this race, because you can see the left side damage on the 54, the rear end damage on the 57, right side damage on the 75. They're all going to be spending a little bit of extra time on pit lane getting repairs done. And extra time on pit road means track position and positions on track that you're going to lose out on. Jordan Lopez back here in the 29th position. He finished second last week at Richmond. That moved him up to third in the standings coming into this race, but right now not the best of runs at this point in time. His teammate just up ahead there, Jordan Lopez in the 98. Two-time winner, I'm sorry, not Jordan Lopez, J Millz, sorry. Two-time winner this season, 13th in the standings coming into this one. 1 point behind R Brommer, who is running ahead of him right now. Let's find out where the cutoff line driver currently is at. And I think I may have passed over him. Oh, maybe not. Nope. I was wrong. Millz is actually running better than Brommer. Brommer's back in the 33rd position right now. And R Brommer is a former road course winner. I want to say it was season 1. Actually, I'm almost certain it was season 1 when he took the checkered flag at Sonoma. Let's find out where some more of our playoff contenders are running. There's M Haas in the number 8, right now in the 25th position, 15th in the playoff standings coming into this race. And if I'm remembering correctly, he's another driver that has a road course win. Nope, I'm wrong. Nope, I thought he had a road course win, but I'm thinking of the wrong race. K Batson right now in 21st. In that KB Racing Enterprises machine. He's currently 8th in the playoff points coming into this race, 15 points ahead of the cut line. And N Hudson needs a good run here today. Hudson did not finish well last week at Richmond. He comes into this race 16th of the 16 playoff drivers, the only rookie to make it into the playoffs this season. And right now he's trying to hold off a former winner at this track, Jesse Turner, who took the checkers back in season 1. Austin LaPlante right now in the 16th position. 6th in the standings. 17 points ahead of the cut line. Just outside of the top 15. Cody Llamas right there. Trying to reel in V Almariego. That's a battle that's brewing for the 11th spot. Llamas is 5th coming into the points. V Almariego in 7th. And there is the defending winner, Cole Baker, right now in the 10th position. Teammates battling for 6th. Charles Belding, right now the highest running rookie on track in the 7th spot, looking to take 6th away from Carson Gum. And right now Dylan Young and J Shelton continue to run in close proximity to each other in that battle for 4th. Jack Mitchell trying to gap these two just a bit to keep his 3rd spot intact. R Acosta quite a ways ahead, and quite a ways ahead of him is Michael Norman. Norman has checked out. Last time by was 3.6 seconds from the 18 back to the 10. Michael Norman has 2 victories in his career in the Duracell Cup Series, and both of them have taken place on dirt tracks, winning at Springfield Mile and Fuel Motorsports Park last season. Those wins got him into the playoffs. Michael Norman has never won on a road course, and he's one of those guys that when you come to a road course, you look at a couple of drivers and you look at the past races at road course and you think, okay, these are some of the favorites to watch. Michael Norman's actually very good when it comes to road course racing. He just hasn't been able to close out the deal at any of them, so not really a surprise to see him running up here at the front. Obviously had a great qualifying effort, started on the pole. Road courses, more often than not, very much like short tracks, are all about track position. And so with starting up front, Michael Norman able to check out. So now right at this moment, a couple of things that Michael Norman has to keep an eye on. Number 1, he has to keep an eye on for the possibility we could end up having a caution get thrown in this race, even though we have completed 6 going on to 7 laps under green flag conditions. And then the second thing is pit road, because, like I said, based off of my projections, my calculations on what I've seen these drivers do in practice, they're going to be on pit road at least once, maybe twice. Target lap right now for these guys is completion of lap 14. If they can make it to there, then we know they can make it the rest of the way. If they pit at any point before that, though, even if they pit coming to the start of lap 14, I think they're going to be just a little bit short of making it the rest of the way without having to pit a second time. And so with Michael Norman, as we can see, he's got over a 5.5 second lead. I'd back down his pace a little bit. Tell him to save a little. He's got a huge gap back to second place. It's then 10 seconds back to third. So why push it? Save a little bit of fuel, which is possible to do here at the Charlotte Roval. I've done it before. A lot of these corners, they can't really attack. There's a couple of corners. I'll show you them when they get around to them. It's in the first half of this road course. But, you know, there's certain corners you have to literally coast almost all the way through. And so that's a big opportunity to get out of the throttle, let it coast, maybe clutch a little bit, and save. Well, R Acosta, the defending champion, is now on a 1-year-plus winless streak. It was about 6 weeks ago. That was the 1-season anniversary of his first and only Duracell Cup Series win. It's kind of interesting, too, if you think about it, because I've been looking through the drivers we've got here in the series that have one win. The reason is, the past 2 seasons, our eventual champion in the Duracell Cup Series had only 1 win on the year. Chris Dollerton, back in Season 1, only had 1 win at Fuel Motorsports Park before he went on to win the championship. And R Acosta only had 1 win last season at Martinsville. And of course, he went on to win the championship there. Jessica Shelton has finally gotten around Dylan Young. Moves herself up into the 4th position. Now going to try and see if she can reel in Jack Mitchell for a spot up on the podium. Battle continues between the Backmarker Motorsports teammates Carson Gum and Charles Belding. Good run here for Belding. Right now, as mentioned, the highest running rookie. Our rookie points battle has actually been really good the last couple of weeks. We now have a new rookie points leader in Austin Colano. He came in 3 points ahead of Patrick Smith. However, I noticed near the rear of the field is where that number 81 Turtle Wax Toyota Camry is running. And speaking of Toyota Camry, Michael Norman brings his Camry onto pit road on lap 9. This is a lot earlier than I expected, and this says to me no way are these drivers going to be able to make it without pitting at least one more time in this race. As Charles Belding's going to stay out, Mitchell Collins stays out, Cody Lamas, Cole Deaver, Austin LaPlante, they're all going to stay out an extra lap. So they're all pitting on lap 9. Don't know if this is the furthest they can go or not, but they're going to have to pit at least one more time. And for some of these guys coming in this early, if they can only go 9 laps, they may have to pit 3 times. I only thought it was going to be twice. Now, remember, I don't know if the fuel window may be open for them to be able to make it the rest of the way, but somehow I don't see them being able to go 17 laps on 1 tank of fuel if they all came to pit road on lap 9. That was a number of cars that came to pit lane. Charles Belding did not lead the lap, we should document as well, because Michael Norman was so far ahead. He's got the number 1 pit stall, so he crossed the start-finish line on pit road and led the last lap. So Belding, depending on where his pit stall is, if he's got a pit stall past the start-finish line, he may end up leading this next lap. Unless he comes to pit road and Collins stays out, Collins may take away the lap-led bonus point from the 91. We'll have to wait and see. Is Belding going to hit pit road this time? Yes, he is. Belding's in. Collins is in. Lamas, Deaver, LaPlante, they're all coming in. Nathan Hudson also stayed out. And we'll see if Belding does cross the line. Looks like he is going to, so I believe he's going to get the bonus point. There you see, yep, he jumps to the top of the board. Also, drivers pitting this lap included J Gardner, R Brommer, K Mathews, Charles Sandfer, and Austin Colano. And Michael Norman, I believe, may have already gone around to get the lead back. Yes, he did. So Norman's going to take back the top spot. R Acosta's going to move back to second. And looks like Shelton is going to take the third spot. Dylan Young in fourth. Belding's going to come off pit road, and he will be in fifth. One driver that lost a lot of spots there on pit lane, it looks like, was the 0-1 of Jack Mitchell. He dropped back to around the 9th position now. Biggest gainer out of all of this, I think, might have been Levi McIntyre. He is now in a battle with Carson Gum as well as Mitchell. Jack Mitchell, that is. They've also got Mitchell Collins in the 22 just up ahead of him there in that Sunny D Ford Mustang. Cody Lamas and Vince Almariego there, and another driver that gained quite a bit out of those pit stops was Ryan Butcher, a former road course winner back at the Pensacola Roval back in Season 1. We'll have to wait and see where everyone cycles around. Ooh, boy, there's some fender banging going on right now between Carson Gum, Jack Mitchell, and Mitchell Collins. That's all around the, I think, 7th position. You have to wait till everything cycles around to know exactly where everybody's running. Norman has already crossed the line with the lead. R Acosta second. We're waiting to see everybody else cross. Shelton crosses third. Dylan Young fourth. Belding in fifth. 6th is McIntyre. 7th Carson Gum. Mitchell in 8th. 9th Mitchell Collins. And right now, Vince Almariego completes the top 10. So it looks like these drivers can only go about 9 to 10 laps on fuel. That is way less than what I was projecting. I thought about 12 to 14. And so if that is the case, then I'm looking at guys like Charles Belding and company, because if they keep going with what they did right there with coming to pit road on lap 10, they should be able to make it on one more pit stop. But guys here like Michael Norman and R Acosta, if I've got this right as far as my calculations, these guys are going to be back on pit road on lap 18 and then possibly back on pit road again on lap 27. So they're going to be short. There's a couple of guys that went and stayed out that extra lap that very well, that extra lap could be the difference between not running out of fuel on the final lap and making it to the checkered flag. So right now I'm looking at that 91 of Charles Belding. And he has actually lost a spot to Levi McIntyre. Boy, Levi's got a good car here. Whatever adjustment they made on pit road has worked. Levi was running back around the 7th, 8th position for most of the run before the pit stops, and now he's up in the 5th position. We mentioned Levi had a top 10 run last week at Richmond, so another good performance here today, and he could be going into Indianapolis already mathematically locked in to the next round. It's Almariego. Also picked up a spot just moments ago, getting around Mitchell Collins, moves Collins back to the 11th spot, or I'm sorry, back to 10th rather. There's some good battling going on here outside of the top 10. This is for around the 13th position. Cole Deaver, Cole Baker, Patrick Smith, who right now could be in line to take the rookie points lead back over from Austin Colano. Nathan Hudson's in this group, along with Kyle Mathews, a couple of the KB Racing Enterprises machines, and Keith Batson and Aaron Macklin. Austin LaPlante's back there, T Wright, and Marcus Saatchi. You see right there the way some of these guys are coming off of the chicane. Saw how low Nathan Hudson was running. If we were running the old configuration, Hudson would be on the end of a tow hook right now because he would have clobbered where the tire barriers were. Patrick Smith threw a block there on Kyle Mathews that killed Kyle's momentum, and now he's going to have Keith Batson to his inside. And what I think is going to be a battle for around the 17th position. And there you see Michael Norman. 17th place is just now going through turns 1 and 2. Michael Norman's already over in the corner just before heading into NASCAR turn 1. So Michael Norman has set a blistering pace. The only thing is that I'm wondering, based off of when we saw him hit pit road, is he going to be one of those drivers that's going to end up just about a lap short? So now the ball is in the court of Charles Belding. I'm trying to remember any of the other drivers that stayed out that extra lap with him, so we can see really who it is that we're looking at maybe to make it on just one more pit stop. Excuse me. And a lot of bumping going on there between Llamas and Collins and Butcher. And, you know, we saw last week, too. At Richmond, a couple of drivers have to pit in the closing stages of the race. I believe Matt Haas was one of them, and Nathan Hudson was the other. And they both finished a lap down. They had to pit on, I think it was on the final lap of that race. They were short on fuel. And that's why the two of them come in 15th and 16th in the points respectively. So, with knowing there could be some drivers that are going to be short on fuel, a lot of these guys that we're seeing running up here towards the front that are playoff contenders like Dylan Young, McIntyre, Mitchell, Carson Gum, L Mariego, they could end up finishing down in the 20s, 25s, you know, as far as the finishing results when all is said and done. We saw that Charles Belding gave up the spot to Levi McIntyre. McIntyre has since then pulled away. Mitchell is now trying to get by the 91, and I think I know what Belding's doing right now. I think he's actually backed his pace down, realizing that he's got to make it somewhere around lap 20. He made it to lap 10 on the first round of green flag pit stops. If he can make it to lap 20, he should be good to go on fuel. So right now, the rookie out of Backmarker Motorsports may be looking fuel-wise to win his first career race, and what a track it would be to do it at. We give Backmarker Motorsports back-to-back victories, and right now the fastest car on track, you're looking at him right now, is Levi McIntyre. He pulled away from Charles Belding, and he has now reeled in Shelton and Young, who are running currently in 3rd and 4th. And look at how he's closing up. I mean, you look at their lap times. Let's take a look at them. 125.9 for Shelton, 125.5 for Dylan Young, 123.7 for Levi McIntyre. Let's see if he's even running faster than the leader. 123.7, and Norman ran a 124.9. So right now, in the top 5, fastest car on track is the 99. The problem for Levi McIntyre, though, is he is over 15 seconds back from Michael Norman. So that's the bad news. But I think he's definitely got a car that can get at least up there to 3rd place. And with another top 10 run, like I said, he could find himself going into Indianapolis already locked in. The question is, though, I think he's on the same fuel strategy as Michael Norman, Ryan Acosta, and a number of these other front runners, so that would put him projected 1 lap short on fuel after his next pit stop. Dylan Young made a move there on Jessica Shelton through the chicane. He'll move back up to the 3rd spot. Shelton, with that little bit of loss of momentum, may be under fire from McIntyre for 4th. Looks out the windshield, sees Marvel Studios, looks out the back windshield in the rearview mirror and sees Marvel Studios. As that time, Levi McIntyre had a little bit of an issue on the front stretch chicane and lost some ground. Yeah, Iron Man, Boxy, and Captain America. Boy, that'd be an interesting Marvel Studios movie. Drop back here, and Belding has actually been able to hold off Jack Mitchell. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think we've either got this lap or the next lap, and we're going to start seeing some drivers hitting pit road again. Carson Gum, 2-time winner. Of course, we've documented everything that's going on with him this season. Started out the year winning the Great American Race Daytona 500. Found himself midway point of the season down outside the top 30 in points. Got a last-minute win at Bristol Dirt that popped him back up into the top 30 in the standings. Having 2 wins, he leapfrogged all the drivers ahead of him with 1 win. Remained in the top 30 in points with a solid out in the regular season finale at Auto Club. He comes into this race 2nd in the point standings. A total of 31 points ahead of the cut line. So if he finishes with a top 10 run here today, he could maybe mathematically already be locked in to the next round. And there's Vince Almariego as well. As a matter of fact, all the Backmarker Motorsports cars having good runs today. You got Belding up in 6th. Carson Gum right now running in 8th. Vince Almariego in 9th. And Cole Baker's not too far outside of the top 10. There he is in the 14th position. So all 4 of the BMM cars all run up inside of the top 15. Gotta wonder if Carson and Vince and Belding all went to Cole Baker, a former winner here, and said, hey, give some tips on how to get around Charlotte Roval. What do we got to do? Well, right now, Michael Norman has been setting the pace after starting on the pole, but the way that this is shaping up, the dominant car of the day may not end up winning this race. Now, if the calculations are correct, Norman's going to be on pit road again this lap. Maybe he can stretch it 10 laps. Maybe he can stretch it one more lap. But if he can only make it 9 laps, he should be on pit lane again this time by. No, he's going to stretch it. What about Ryan Acosta? Is he going to stretch it 10 laps? Yes, he... No, he's not. Nope. He caught me by surprise. Last minute turn down to pit road. So Ryan Acosta is definitely going to be short on fuel. He will not make it the rest of the way without pitting one more time. Dylan Young, J Shelton, Levi McIntire, they all stayed out. Let's see if anybody else back here pits. Vince Almariego is going to have to pit. So is Ryan Butcher. So there's these guys that we're seeing coming to pit road. I think they're going to have to pit at least one more time before this race is over. Unless they can stretch it 10 laps on their last run. So with Michael Norman staying out... If Norman stays out, he might be able to make it then if he pits this next time. He would be pitting at the conclusion of lap 19. That would put him 10 laps away from the finish. He was able to stretch it 10 laps on this run. If he stretches it 10 laps on the next run, he could make it. And right now, we've got our top 3 all non-playoff contenders right now. Well, actually, no, 3 of our top 4. And as mentioned coming into this race, a playoff contender has won the Charlotte Roval for the past 2 seasons. And Norman will hit pit lane this time. So let's see about when Belding comes around. Let's see if he stays out in extra lap. Because Norman went 10 laps that time on that run. Dylan Young is going to pit. Interesting to see, too, if Ryan Acosta with the fresher tires is able to gain any time. McIntyre's in, Shelton's in, Belding stays out. Jack Mitchell hit pit lane, but Belding did stay out again. So Belding is definitely good to go on fuel now when he makes his pit stop, because he's going to be pitting with about 8 laps to go. It's a question mark about Michael Norman, although I kind of feel that Norman may be good to go on fuel. Cody Lamas also stayed out. Collins, Deaver, Nathan Hudson, Kyle Mathews, Austin LaPlante. And there is Norman coming out just behind those guys. J Gardner and Ryan Brommer actually also stayed out as well. And just to show you the lead that Michael Norman had, he's coming out ahead of those guys who haven't even yet made their pit stops. I want to also jump to the back here because I saw a couple of guys. Benny Watson right now in the 39th position. That is last of the cars running on track. They've gotten the damage repaired on that car, and I think he's running back here because they had to spend that extra time on pit road repairing his machine. As a number of drivers currently leaving pit road. Matthew Rodriguez, they never even fixed that car. That car is still kind of drooped on the back end. And there's a couple of guys I wanted to see where some of them were running. Matt Haas is back here, so is Jordan Lopez and Jose Millz. And they just finished up their pit stops. That's not good for those drivers. See if Belding. Yep, he's on pit road this time. Cody Lamas is in. Just about everybody that stayed out is in. And there is Norman. I think Michael Norman may have this. Last thing he wants to see is a caution, but I think Michael Norman might be okay. If he had only made it 9 laps on the last run, then I would have been worried. But he made it 10 laps. He's gone 9 laps on the first run, 10 laps on the second run, so he's completed 19 laps. That puts him at 9 laps to go. even if we project 10 laps to go, if he can make it 10 laps here on this run, then he should be okay. And this might be the time he starts backing it down. Maybe he wanted to build up that big gap. So that way here on this final run, potentially to the checkers, he could end up very easily saving fuel and not losing too much time as a result. Ryan Acosta still quite a ways back. You saw Michael Norman off there in the distance over in NASCAR Turn 1 as Acosta was still making his way through the road course section. Still in the second spot. Dylan Young right now in third. Levi McIntyre has moved to fourth. Shelton lost a couple of spots. She's now back in the fifth position. Sixth is Vince Almariego. Seventh is Charles Belding, who is hoping these guys up ahead can't make it on fuel. Eighth is Ryan Butcher. Ninth place under contest. Keith Batson is going to take it away from Cody Llamas. So Cody back to 10th. 11th place is Mitchell Collins. How about James Qualls up to 12th? Remember, Qualls had that damage. Let's see if he still does. Yeah, they never fixed that car. It's got that left side damage from an incident under the pace lap. He's up there still in the 12th position. Actually, make that 11th as we just saw him get around Collins. Collins back to 12th. Carson Gunn lost some spots on pit road. He's now fallen back to 13th. Nathan Hudson's 14th. Cole Deaver 15th. Another driver that lost spots on pit road again was Jack Mitchell. That team has not been good as far as the pit stops today. So he's back to the 16th position. Kyle Mathews in 17th. Battle on for 18th between Marcus Saatchi and Cole Baker. And right now completing your top 20 is Patrick Smith. 21st is Aaron Macklin. 22nd, Austin LaPlante. 23rd place, that's where you find Matt Haas and T Wright battling with each other. 25th is Adam Garcia. 26th and 27th are the teammates J Millz and Jordan Lopez. 28th is Ryan Brommer. This is not a good run for the guy that came in the cutoff line driver, 12th in the standings. Jesse Turner, former winner here, back in 29th. 30th place is William Brock. 31st is going to be Nathan Ormond. 32nd, Matthew Rodriguez. 33rd is Jacob Thibodeaux. 34th, Phil Parker. 35th is Johnny Gardner. Charles Sandfer back here in 36th. 37th is Benny Watson. Carter Friesen already locked into the next round, has not made very much noise here today. He's right now running in the 38th position, and right now 39th is Austin Colano, the guy who came into this race, the rookie points leader. His teammate Michael Norman, though, is out in front, so you got Michael Norman Motorsports cars leading and tailing the field. And, of course, if you're just joining us, we had an incident under pacing involving Matthew Rodriguez, James Qualls, Benny Watson, and Zach Rogers. Zach Rogers sustains so much damage, he didn't even get to the green flag. He finishes out today's race in the 40th position, came into this race in an elimination spot, 14th in the standings. He's got a lot of work to do next week at Indianapolis. So now it's the question of, can he make it on fuel? Talking about Michael Norman. Now, my initial gut feeling is yes, he can, because he made it 9 laps in the first run, 10 laps on the second run. He would then have to make it 10 laps on the final run. And you can see he's got almost a 13-second lead back to Ryan Acosta. So back your pace down, save a little bit. We already know that he can make it 9 laps, so you just got to basically save another lap of fuel here and you're good to go. Norman is chasing his 3rd career Duracell Cup Series victory and first of the season. In terms of drivers outside of the playoffs, Michael Norman comes in 23rd in the standings, so that is 7th highest in points without a victory, or at least that's not in the playoffs, I should say. 7th highest that's not in the playoffs, because there are a number of guys that are outside of the playoffs that have wins this season. Michael's got 3 top 5s this year, 6 top 10s, 1 pole position. We can now make that 2 with him starting on the pole here today at the Charlotte Roval. And really our top 2 have been our top 2 all day, because Norman started on the inside of the front row, Ryan Acosta started on the outside of the front row. And they have been running first and second this entire event. Levi McIntire, in my opinion, if he had started up closer to the front, I think that we would have maybe had a challenge for Norman. As Levi, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be incorrect in this, but it seems like I remember when we had the endurance race here, at the Charlotte Roval. I think Levi McIntire was the winner of that race. So when you think back to that and his previous experience here at the Charlotte Roval, I guess we can't really be that surprised. But, I mean, he's been running lap times faster than the top two. The bad news for him is, though, he started back there, I think it was around the middle portion of the top 10, maybe even the latter half of the top 10, so he had to make his way through a lot of race cars while he was dealing with that. Michael Norman was pulling away, so was R Acosta, so, fact remains, though, for Levi McIntire, even if he leaves today with a third-place run, I believe coming into this event, with the gap he had back to R Brommer, who was the cutoff line driver, and a number of drivers that are having difficulties here today, like Rogers out of the race, J Millz back there outside of the top 20, M Haas has been struggling today as well. With the run Levi McIntire is putting on right now, after a top 10 run last week at Richmond, I think that he is one driver we can easily see moving on to the next round. So Carter Friesen, we already know, is locked in. I think we can safely say right now, if he finishes out where he is, that Levi McIntire also would be moving on to the next round confirmed, regardless of what happens next week at Indianapolis. The goal for these drivers is they want to be about 45 points ahead of the cut line going into the elimination race. Then really mathematically there's very little chance of them being eliminated out of the round of 12. Levi's gap between himself and Brommer coming into this race was 25 points. So, if he can gain another 20 points here today over that cut line, he's going into Indy knowing he is going to be in the round of 12. Levi, of course, in his second playoffs appearance, as he made the playoffs last year for the first time in his career after a win at New Hampshire. It was his win in the Coke 600 this season that got him into the playoffs. First time in the playoffs, though, for V Almariego, and he's been doing a heck of a job there in that 42 machine right now in the 6th position, trying to reel in J Shelton for what would be a battle inside of the top 5. Almariego, 7th in the points coming into this race. He is one of 2 Backmarker Motorsports cars that made it into the playoffs. The other one, Carson Gum, who is currently running outside of the top 10. He's actually faded back quite a bit as the 19. There he is, back in 16th place. Obviously, he's got that good run last week at Richmond to fall back on. 16th is not that bad of a run here today, considering the struggles a lot of other drivers have had. But he's definitely not going to be going into Indianapolis locked in to the next round. Jack Mitchell right here as well in the 15th spot, and Mitchell did struggle last week at Richmond, so I think he needed a little bit better run than this here today. This is going to keep him around status quo, as he was 11th in the standings coming into this one. I'll tell you the driver I'm really impressed with, though, as far as a comeback, and that is J Qualls, because when I saw him with damage back there under pacing, I kind of wrote him off as a guy that was probably going to be at the back most of the day, especially since I thought they were going to have to spend time on pit road repairing that car, that left side of his number 54. No way. They have not fixed it all race long. It has not seemed to affect him speed-wise. And right now he is trying to get up into the top 10, trying to reel in Ryan Butcher. And don't forget, J Qualls has a win this season at a road course, winning at Pukakas. So another driver who really shouldn't be surprised is running up here close to the top 10. So I think the answer has been made pretty clear. Yes, Michael Norman should be able to make it. Next time by is going to be the white flag lap for that Pizza Hut Toyota Camry. A lot of news coming out of Michael Norman Motorsports here this past couple of weeks. Michael Norman Motorsports going to be a 4-car team next season. They're moving from Camrys over to Fords. Norman will be driving the 18. We know Cody Lamas is coming back in the 84. No word if Colano's returned to the 81, but they're also going to have the number 83 in the stables as a non-chartered ride. And Michael Norman, not coming to pit lane. He's going to go through the chicane, and he's going to see the white flag. It's going to be a coast-to-coast win for Michael Norman. And, I mean, I think if we even call this a dominating performance, that's putting it lightly. I mean, this has been a slaughterfest. Michael Norman, almost 20 seconds back to second place. Nobody's been able to touch him. He's been able to basically, with this entire race going green, been able to determine himself what he wants to do. And he is looking to capture the second win of the season, I believe it is, for Michael Norman Motorsports. J Llamas, of course, winning earlier on this year, picking up the first win for the team at Fuel Motorsports Park. And Michael Norman, for the first time in his career, is going to have a road course win in the Duracell Cup Series. I mean, Michael was really wanting to make the playoffs this season. You think about if he had made the playoffs and he was running with a lithium blue banner, he would be basically turning for home to make his way locked into the round of 12. But a win is still a win. And Michael Norman, out of the final corners, is going to head through the front straightaway chicane. And for the first time this season, Michael Norman is going to take a checkered flag. And he's going to dominate here today at the Charlotte Roval. And then, if you want to go and do something, and then come back 20 seconds later, you'll be able to see R Acosta cross the line in second place. Where is he? Any second now. Any second now. There he is. Levi McIntyre was actually starting to reel Acosta in for second. He's going to finish in third. Highest playoff contender. Dylan Young right behind him in fourth. Shelton brings it home fifth. L Mariego in sixth. Highest finishing rookie is going to be Belding in seventh. K Batson, J Llamas there in eighth and ninth. So we had 5 playoff drivers finish up inside the top 10 today, with Ryan Butcher completing the top 10. So McIntyre third, Young in fourth, Almariego sixth, Batson in eighth, and Llamas in ninth, trying to give themselves a little bit of breathing space going into Indianapolis. And I think we gotta wait just a little bit here. I don't know if they have made the standings official or not. Don't know if the entire field has crossed, and apparently they have. So the standings are indeed official. J Qualls there in 11th. Great run for him. As I said, I kind of thought he was going to finish way back there after the early damage he sustained. But nope, gets 11th. N Hudson in 12th. That's a well-needed run for the 24. We'll see if this gets him anywhere closer to 12th in the standings, as he was 16th of the 16 playoff contenders coming into this one. And then we're looking for the rest of the playoff contenders here. We got 13th and 14th place, J Deaver and Mitchell Collins. Then you go down to Jack Mitchell, the regular season champion. He finishes in 15th. Carson Gum in 16th. M Haas in 22nd. Jordan Lopez 23rd. J Millz 25th. I'm kind of worried about those guys with where they finished. Same for R Brommer in 26th. LaPlante finished way down there in 28th. We never really mentioned him today. And the lowest finishing playoff contender was Carter Friesen, but I mean, he came into this race already locked into the next round, so he could afford a bad run here today. Maybe he was just trying to keep himself out of trouble. Didn't really have to force the issue or anything, so no, even though he finishes way down there, we already know he is still going to be moving on to the round of 12. And you see only 39 cars here on the grid. The 40th place car is a playoff contender. Zach Rogers didn't even make it to the green flag, so that's really going to hurt him. But I mean, there's a lot of guys that were down there either on the cut line or behind the cut line that did not get the runs they needed today. Brommer, Millz, Rogers, M Haas. I'm a little worried about those guys heading into Indianapolis. I think they're still going to be down there either below the cut line or right around the cut line. And I don't want to say that all of them are, but I think that Zach Rogers, after a tough run last week, getting involved in a wreck that didn't even bring out a caution at Richmond, and then not even getting to the green here at Charlotte, I think he may be heading into Indy in a must-win situation if he's going to move on to the next round of the playoffs. And this is a guy who, if I remember correctly, has finished in the final 4 in the point standings in the first 2 seasons here of Duracell Cup. He's been in the running for the championship in both those seasons. So we'll see what Rogers is able to do next week at the Yard of Bricks. But that's going to do it here today. For the first time in Duracell Cup Series, the Charlotte Roval is won by a non-playoff driver, Michael Norman. First win of the season, 3rd win of his career. Takes the checkered flag in dominating fashion. Hope you guys enjoyed today's race. If you did, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and become part of the crew today. We have shown you full finishing results. These are what your point stands look like heading into next week, as well as what your playoff grid looks like. You can take a look around the 12th position. That's the cutoff line driver. And who are the drivers behind that are basically heading into Indy, hoping that they can jump their way up into the top 12 to make it into the next round. Until then, we're going to be at Indianapolis next week. Until then, I am Seth Cole. You've been watching a production of the NCRA Offline Racing at its best. So long from the Charlotte Roval.
Bye.